After a 40-minute sparring session with Justin Gaethje, Rose Namajunas starts crying.
First off, though, let me say hello to Brett Okamoto, who's joining us via the phone. Brett, how are you?
I'm good, man. How are you, Ariel?
I'm doing all right. Where in the world are you right now, Brett?
I'm in Denver, Colorado this week.
Okay, so I was hoping that you would say that because I thought maybe you had left. But you are in Denver. I saw yesterday on social media you had a chance to check in with Rose Namajunas, strawweight champion, who returns May 11th. Also, Justin Gaethje, they are teammates there in Denver. Could you tell us a bit about what you're doing, what you saw, what you witnessed? Because it seemed like you were about to witness something pretty spectacular.
Yeah, man. I've been doing a lot of fun stuff, going around to these different camps and trying to tell some of these stories a little more in depth ahead of some of these fights. And Rose was definitely one that I wanted to come out and get in Denver. And she kind of had her last sort of, I guess you'd call it hard day of practice. I mean, she's obviously still going to be doing a lot between now and the 2.5 weeks through the fight, but it was basically described to me before I got there that it was going to be one 40-minute round between Rose and Justin, which I thought I must have misunderstood, because I was like, first of all, just those two going at it, but then also just one round of 40-minute length. And they're like, yeah, they've been working out together for a long time. They're really familiar with one another, and it was fun to see. And Justin was not in the best shape of his life. I don't think he's done a whole lot since he won his last fight, but he came in and he gave Rose a really good look. I mean, especially just with the size that he can offer. We know Andrade is a big, powerful puncher, and we know some of the, the power wrestling that she can do. And I think, working with someone that Rose is obviously very, very familiar with, and it was just good. I mean, they weren't going 100%, as I'm sure you would expect. But it was fun to watch them kind of roll together. It was good work.
Okay, so if they're not going 100%, like what speed, what level would you say Gaethje was at?
Yeah, it's hard to put like a percentage on it, but I think, the big difference is the size, and I think like when they lock up, I mean, one thing that was really cool to watch about this, and I'm going to give Justin props here. I think he's an amazing sparring partner. He actually told me when they were done, he's like, I know exactly how to push people in sparring. He's like, if you've never fought before in your life, like, you and I could put on gloves right now, and I'll give you a sparring session. Like, I can spar with you right now. And he's like, and I think part of it is that he's just not afraid to take a punch. He's like, I'll let you beat me up a little bit, and then, I'll beat you up a little bit, and you'll get something out of it. You'll be able to work on something, you'll be able to win something, and then I'm going to, show you something that maybe you need to work on. And with Rose, the part that stood out were the grappling exchanges. They would tie up, and obviously she's 115-pound strawweight. He's fighting at 155, and right now he's much heavier than that because he's not in camp. So there were times where you could tell that he could have, thrown her around, but he's going just enough where he's kind of winning some of those grappling exchanges, but then, he's giving her openings and when she does something well, he's not ramping it up to his full level. So he's just a really good sparring partner, man, and you could tell that those two have worked out together a lot. It was pretty fascinating.
And are they going 40 minutes straight, no breaks?
Yeah. I mean, they would take a break here and there to like adjust equipment or something, but yeah, I mean, it was pretty much nonstop for the entire length of the round. Are they wearing
headgear, shin pads, anything like that?
Yeah, Justin was wearing headgear.
Rose wasn't.
What? I don't know if that's a personal preference or what, but yeah, and. It was just funny, man. Gaethje's just a hilarious guy, too, as you know. And, I mean, he'd get hit in the body, and he'd be making noises like, and they'd be rolling around, and he'd be talking about how strong she was. It was playful. It was serious, and they were both spent at the end of it. It was solid. It was serious training, but it was also playful. It was, two pros doing something that they're very familiar and comfortable with.
And they do this often.
I don't think they do it that often, actually.
Oh, wow.
I mean, Gaethje told me that he hadn't, he'd gone on a couple runs since the Barboza fight, but other than that, he really hadn't done anything. And I don't know how we lucked out that it was just the day that we happened to want to spend with Rose is that the day they called up Gaethje and said, hey, would you be willing to come over and do this? But yeah, man, we lucked out and we got to see a full 40 man. It was just those two. I mean, there were some other fighters in the gym doing their own thing, but as far as like this practice, it was only those two.
And so here we are. It's April 24th. The fight is 2 weeks away from this weekend, if my math is correct. Yeah, 2 weeks away from this weekend. How would you assess Rose? Because I think there's actually a lot of questions about Rose going into this fight because A, she hasn't fought in a little over a year at this point. All the stuff that happened, with the Dolly incident and her just trying to get over that mentally. And it feels like, which we've talked about in the past, it feels like people are just sort of writing her off. Maybe not in this fight, but oh gosh, when she gets in there with Tatiana Suarez, okay, the title run is done. She's going to enemy territory. She's going to Brazil. Andrade is from Brazil. Andrade has looked very good as of late at 115. How would you assess her right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're aware of that, and I think that they have sort of their own. And when I say they, I'm talking about Rose. I'm talking about her team. I'm talking about Pat Barry, who is her fiance, but also kind of her head coach. He is her head coach. He's the one who is designing her schedules and kind of seeing her through on a day-to-day basis. And I think that they don't want to get too caught up in it. I think that just generally speaking, they believe that hey, we're successful. We've found the recipe for success. I mean, look at us. We're coming off 2 wins over Joanna Jędrzejczyk, who's the most dominant strawweight of all time. We're holding the belt, and they're not looking to get involved or to get caught up in some of the things that like they can't control or some of the things that just don't mesh with their personality. I mean, really, Rose and Pat, like their typical day consists of literally going out, sitting in the backyard, and just playing fetch with her dog Mishka. And like that's all they do. And they don't really. She doesn't post a whole lot on social media. And Pat, kind of guessed or speculated that maybe that's why Rose doesn't get a whole lot of credit sometimes. Is that she does wear her emotions on her sleeve. People are aware that she cries at times during her camp, and she cried when she was going round with Gaethje. I saw her cry, and it's just part of who she is. And some people, I think, interpret that as weakness or, maybe don't know the exact reasons behind it. And then they see someone like Andrade who just like, she's kind of like the symbol of power, just like horsepower. She's throwing people around. She's knocking out Karolina Kowalkiewicz. And they look at Rose as maybe fragile compared to that. I don't know. I mean, that's something that Pat was sort of throwing out there, but they're okay with it. They like to have that yin and yang of Rose where, she's at home and playing the piano and, cooking up soups and playing with her dog, and she doesn't look like a cage fighter. But when she walks to the cage, then they see that transformation, and they're used to it. It's something that she's been doing now for a long time, and it's their recipe for success, and they feel good going into this fight.
Yeah, I find her to be one of the more fascinating characters in the sport right now, and I actually think that Pat is right, that she doesn't get the attention that she deserves. She doesn't get the sponsorships that she deserves, because I think she should. Maybe she doesn't want to put herself out there. And I've talked to her about this in the past, about, social media and taking breaks from social media and how she doesn't like it at times. But I don't know about you, like my wife doesn't like MMA. She doesn't watch MMA. She's tolerating it, but like she's not a fan. She loves Rose. Like, she's fascinated by Rose. When Rose is on, like when Rose fought Michelle Watterson, like she was all in on that fight. She could relate to those people, and I think that Rose represents that door that the UFC can go through and get people like a Lululemon or something like that's perfect for a Rose. And I'm surprised that she hasn't gotten those opportunities yet. And I hope for her sake the title run doesn't end just yet, because she should be getting those opportunities. I know Reebok is doing something big with her now that they haven't done with some of the other athletes. I got an email about that recently, about a campaign they're doing with a shoe for her. So this is nice to see, but I think she'll always be one of those people who doesn't truly feel 100% comfortable with everything that goes into the fight game as far as like having to sell yourself and promote yourself. I'm curious though about the crying in this particular case, because I've heard her talk about this in the past, crying in her car, getting frustrated. But if it was such a friendly sparring match with Gaethje, why did she end up crying in the middle of it?
I think just because she gets mad at herself if she doesn't perform to the level that she thinks she should be. I mean, that's always kind of what has always been told to me about why Rose cries, is that it's like just her frustration and herself coming out. And she tried to describe her own mindset to me, and at one point as she was describing it, she's like, "Is this making any sense?" And I told her, I was like, "Well, it is complicated. I will agree with you and admit to you that it is complicated, but yeah, it's making sense." And basically, that she has two sides to herself. She has one side that is like it never even, like, I asked her at what point in her life did she think she could be like a champion of martial arts, and she's like, "Well, in some ways, I never even asked myself that question. It was always just a given that, like, I am so confident that I know I can be a champion in anything that I do. That anything that I set my mind to or anything that I become involved in, like, it's just easy to me, and I will do it, and I will become the best at it." But then there's also this, like second half of me that is constantly telling me I'm no good, I'm useless, I'm worthless, and I suck at everything. So I think when she cries, that's probably that second half of her, you know, saying that what you're doing is not good enough, and you're going to go into this fight and you're going to lose. And she battles a lot of self-doubt. And I think that's why people like your wife, who doesn't love martial arts, but can look at Rose and maybe even not hear the entire full story on Rose, but be drawn to her and be compelled by her in some ways, because you do see, like, her fighting herself, I guess, in real time. You know, that's always very apparent with Rose, and I think that's what makes her so compelling to people.
On episode 129 of the Below the Belt podcast, Brendan Schaub speculates UFC to be the most pirated sport ever.
Is the UFC the most pirated sport in the world? I would say yes. I'd like to see the figures, because because especially the 18 to 36 demo, who's fucking pirating everything, because that's just what people do. Even I started joining on this shit. So that's just what people started to do, right? So the UFC is so heavy watched and viewed between 18 and 36 males, and now it's just a digital sport, unless you have the undercards on ESPN. But now with the pay-per-views being digital, and so many people just putting it out for free with piracy, right? Because the NFL, you don't need to pirate. Maybe if you're in Japan or some shit, I don't know. But as far as North America, the most pirated sport would have to be UFC. The other stuff you don't have to pirate. Is that a fair assumption?
It says Mayweather-McGregor was the most pirated in history fight.
Yeah, but so that was $100, and you know, that's a $100 pay-per-view, and also the most pirates fight of all time. Yeah, because McGregor Tyson versus fucking Evander Holyfield, no, the technology wasn't around. So that doesn't mean much to me. But it's just where we're at. But I'm assuming, and I think it's a good thing, they're going to figure out how to capitalize on it. And I don't know if you want to shut it all down. You know, so like if someone takes let's say they take a clip of me talking about Game of Thrones, they put on their YouTube page. There's ways where I get credit for that and I get paid for that. But at the same time, they're marketing it for you. That's getting more views I probably wouldn't have had. So you don't want to shut that stuff down. Yeah, go ahead, take it, dude. To post it wherever you want. You're posting a page and you're getting 100,000 views on that. Cool, that's 100,000 more people that watched it that didn't see it on my channel. That's cool. So if you're the UFC, do you want to shut down all the piracy? Probably not. Matter of fact, they're not even really addressing it, are they? Because remember, the UFC is getting a flat fee from ESPN. But what's good for the sport is the most eyeballs possible. What's good for Game of Thrones is the most eyeballs possible, right? Even though we can't put a number on it, we know it's the most watched TV show of all time, and they say, oh, it's 100 million, when we know really it's 400 million, 500 million. But here's where it gets tricky. Do we know how many people watch Stylebender versus Kelvin Gastelum? Have the numbers came out? I'm sure, because I know the prelims were low. Prelims were like 900,000.
You think they'll actually show now that
they don't have to? But here's the thing: so when the prelims are that low, that's an indicator that the pay-per-view's not high. It's a straight indicator. That's never really low, and the pay-per-view's huge. So let's say, I don't fucking know, man. We have no idea, right?
I don't see it. Yeah, plenty of the preliminary cards. But not
so they're low. So let's say it was 300,000. Just for instance, it was 300,000. So when let's say Stylebender gets a pay-per-view percentage. I don't know how they're doing it now. That's on ESPN. That has to be negotiated. But if you're Stylebender's, I keep using him, right? So if you're Stylebender's manager and you're going to meeting with Dana White and you go, hey, he's the champ now, man. He beat Robert Whittaker. He's the champ. We need pay-per-view points. The UFC is going to say, dude, you're not a draw. Only 300,000 people watched you. But you're like, well, wouldn't you, if you're the manager, you'd have to go, hold up. 300,000 people bought on the platform behind this paywall that you created. We have numbers here, and you can bring up Twitch or whatever you want. We can get definite numbers. We calculate over 2 million to 3 million people watch this illegally. People still watched it. So you setting up this 2-wall pay barrier created 300,000 people to pay for it. That's what you base the numbers off of. Actually, 3,200,000 people watched it. So wouldn't you have, because now in this piracy age in 2019, you would have to argue that. Because you can't go off the UFC's word. They go, dude, on our numbers, though, we only got paid on 300,000. That's because you made it impossible for people to buy. That's not my issue. My issue is how many eyeballs watched it. In the UFC, do you want to cut that? So what? You look at this. UFC 34 Asadia, or that's Silva, did estimated 175,000 buys. 175,000 buys. That's awful. But then you got it's not Stylbender's fault. It's not Silva's fault. So the main event, the co-main event, bumped out. You know what I'm saying? But if you're a manager, you're gonna have to. You're gonna have to get your shit together. You're gonna have to have your ear to the ground. You got to know what's going on, and you got to realize how big of a draw your guy actually is. Because these behind the paywall numbers, if they're gonna argue that, that's not good. UFC 228, is that what it was?
No, it's 236.
Oh, whoops.
I'm pretty sure we're not gonna be able to find it because
they're not gonna release them too, because it's not gonna.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be good. So we won't know.
We were wondering that too before. Remember if they're gonna actually release these?
They're not going to. They're gonna act like everything's all good.
Yeah.
Again, because it gives UFC brass negotiating power over Stylebender and the other champions and Dustin Poirier and Khabib. So it gives them power to go, we can't give you that, man. Look, we're only doing 300,000 buys. Yeah, but you got to guarantee. That's the other thing. If you're the manager, you gotta go, well, it's gonna get so messy. You gotta go, well, you got that guarantee from ESPN though. So you're still getting paid on top of it. Like, what are we doing, man? But you're gonna have to get creative as a manager and go, he's actually pulled in this many people saw Stylebender do this. You guys have that. That's just on your ESPN platform. But where the kids are watching it, where Schaub watched it, that shit was free. And there's 3 million plus watching it, bro. That's that. Why do you think he's selling me shirts? Look at his following on Instagram. Look at his following on Twitter. Tricky game, right? Because if you're the UFC, you want the sport and your fighters be as popular as possible. So I don't know what you do. I don't have the answer for it. But shutting all that piracy down, which they can anyways, that ain't the move. I have no idea what you do, man. But they'll figure it out. There's always kind of these.
Actually.
What?
So if they did find out who's illegal, people would give me so much
you had
shit.
an out, but go ahead. I was just gonna move on, but go ahead, Jen.
If there was a deal with those streaming sites, but there's no way that's happening. But I was gonna say because those streaming sites, they go off of ad revenue too, right?
Oh yeah.
So that means if you find someone, or you're finding that they're illegally streaming it, whatever ad revenue that they made goes back to the UFC or ESPN, and you also get the views.
Or if I'm the UFC, do I create one and I get the ad revenue? I'm behind it. We're like, oh man, so many people illegally downloaded this, touching this link, but it's my link I put out because they're gonna do it anyways. So if we want to get paid, let's run the ads off this link. Let's blast this clear free link out. ESPN doesn't. Dude, you're talking about shady business. So if I'm the UFC, I'm putting this free thing out, or I'm in business with that whoever link I use on Reddit. I'm posting the link to Reddit. We're getting the revenues off there. We're getting those ad revenue money. Maybe ESPN's on it too, though. ESPN's like, yeah, as long as we're getting paid off that, 3 million people are watching. Shady business, right? That's what I would do. It's like, yeah, let's just create our own link. Have people, it's clear as fuck. They're gonna pirate it anyways. Let's get the money off the views that we're not getting. Let's make the legal stream better than whatever the other people are doing. I don't know how you get much better. Mine was clear as fuck. Now, I'm not saying I did do that, but someone I heard was clear as fuck. Let's get that straight.
I agree, it's a dumb idea, but just thought of it.
Dumb idea to...
Never mind. I shouldn't have brought that up.
You're all right.
All right.
You're right, dude. I also watched, and not on ESPN Plus because I didn't want to deal with it.
If you have not already, hit that subscribe button with its notification bell and leave a comment in the comment box below of what you thought of the video, and tune in for more on MMA News Outlet.